We took that secret night shift because we were broke, and the monitor chirped wrong the second we swung the gate and the canary went quiet. My brother walked right behind me. He was the younger one. He always talked big. He said it would be fine. He said nobody checked that level anyway. He said we would grab the gear, pull some cable, stack the old steel, haul it up, and split the cash. It was a shut level. The sign said sealed. The company locked it months back after the last squeeze. We knew the lock. We knew the trick with the latch. We knew where the little fan ran. We knew where the airline still had pressure. We had gone in before, but not this deep, and never at night. We went in because rent was due and my truck needed a new pump and our mother was sick again. That was it. There was no brave story. We put the canary on the hook and clipped the gas monitors to our vests. We checked our headlamps. We moved the gate. The gate creaked. The canary chirped 3 times and then stopped. The monitor chirped like it had a wrong setting. One high chirp. A pause. Not the normal drum. It made my jaw tighten. "Bad battery," he said. He frowned at the little screen. He smacked it with his glove. "See? It's fine." It wasn't fine, but I was tired, and I wanted the cash. The first drift looked clear. Wet coal dust smeared the ribs like old grease. Our boots left dark prints that filled with water. There was a sour stink in the air, hard to name. It was like bad eggs, but not the same. It came and went on the draft. One breath I had it, the next breath it was gone. We passed a pile of timbers. A drill lay on top. No one had left it there. It had a cable wrapped around its handle like a hand. The bit had fresh shine where it rubbed. I picked it up. It was damp and gritty. I set it aside and chalked an arrow on the rib toward the gate. We worked small. We took old tools that still had metal in them. We stacked what we could. We talked quiet. "You sure the fan is on?" he said. His voice echoed too much. The air felt cold on my teeth. "It's on," I said. "I wired it last week." We pushed deeper. The canary stayed on my belt. It didn't sing. It shifted a little. Feathers ruffled. The meters showed low numbers, flickering. They chirped sometimes in a slow pattern, then went dead quiet. The lamps were bright at first. They dimmed in runs. We both had spare batteries. We said we would swap when we hit the crosscut. "Smell that?" he said. "Gone now," I said. The sour came back when we turned left. The floor was wet. Water seeped from a crack and ran in a thin line. Our boots pushed ripples. Cold drafts slipped along the floor. The drafts felt like fingers along my ankles. My lamp showed our breath. It showed more. In the beam, steam gathered on the rib and hung, and for a moment it held a shape, shoulder and head, like someone standing close. I swung the light. It broke apart when I did that. It just looked like cold air. We joked then, but it fell flat. "Don't do that," he said. "Don't do what?" "Don't shine it like that." We got to the sealed door. It sat at the end of a short drift. It was a thick steel door we had propped with a wedge last time. The wedge was gone. The door stood closed. My chalk arrow I had put there a week before was wiped. There was a smear where the arrow should have been, like a wet hand dragged across it. I touched the smear. It was gritty and cold. "We didn't close that," he said. "No," I said. "We didn't." We listened. We heard metal tapping, sharp and hollow, from down the empty drift past the door. Tap, tap, tap. Like a small hammer on a rail. It wasn't the water. It had a timing. Then it stopped. The canary shifted once and went still. It tucked its head. My monitor chirped once. Just one crisp chirp like a toy until I tapped it and it went dumb again. "Maybe someone's here," he said. He didn't sound like he believed that. "There's nobody here," I said. "Hold the door." We set our shoulders. We pried the door open a foot with the bar and shoved the wedge back in place. The draft changed on our faces. The sour got strong, then thin again, like a wave. We switched batteries in our lamps. Mine went bright. His flickered as he twisted the cap and then steadied. We chalked more arrows. He wrote our initials. I wrote the time. We went through. "Get in and get out," I said. "Grab the copper and go." We crossed into the shut section. The sprays on the ribs were stuck. Black mud covered the mesh. The floor was slick. I wiped my gloves on my pants and left wet streaks. There were footprints on the floor that were not ours, older ones, with long drag marks between them. We saw a shovel leaned in a corner with its blade buried in soft mud. It looked like someone had just pushed it there. It annoyed me more than it scared me. We filled 2 sacks. He laughed once when he found a brand new wrench under a beam like someone hid it for later. He stuffed it. We worked steady and quiet. The monitors stayed weird. They blinked. They gave low numbers and then nothing and then a chirp the wrong way. I tapped mine again and again. Yeah. The canary didn't make a sound. It watched us with one eye. It made me think of my mother's bird in her kitchen. By the time we turned back, the door we had propped was closed again. The wedge lay flat on the floor like someone had stepped on it. My chalk marks were smudged off the rib. The air felt thick in my throat. The sour smell came on and made my eyes water. We both stared at the door. "How?" he said. "Draft took it," I said. It made no sense. The draft ran the other way. We put our hands on the steel. It felt cold, then almost hot, then cold again. It gave me a headache. We put our backs into it. It didn't budge at first. We set the bar. We heaved. We got it open just enough. That's when the fan down the line cut out. It stopped like someone pulled a plug. All at once, the drifts went quiet. No hum, no little whistle. The silence came down and pressed us thin. The canary woke up just to shuffle, and then it made a tiny sound. Not a chirp, like a breath. Then it went still again. "Don't stop," he said. "Hold it. Hold it." We got through fast, 1 bag each. And then the door slammed behind us. It slammed on its own with a clang that rang down the drift. We both flinched. The wedge was under my boot. I had kicked it out without knowing. My brother grabbed my sleeve. "Hey," he said, too loud. "Hey, stop screwing around." "I'm not," I said. We stood with our lamps shining at the steel. The lamps dimmed together like someone put a hand over them. They crept back up. They dimmed again. The sour smell poured in and then vanished. My eyes burned. My lungs felt slippery. The metal tapping started again from down to the right, the empty drift where the timbers leaned. It came closer and then receded, like something walked and tapped. Tap, tap, tap. There was no one there. "We go left," I said. "We go to the refuge. We wait it out." He shook his head. "Back to the gate. Straight ahead." "We go left," I said. "If the fan's down, we need air." We argued for 1 breath. Then the roof popped. It was a dull sound. A slab dropped behind us and hit the floor and sprayed wet dust. It blocked the straight-ahead route. Just like that, no warning, our way out back to the gate was gone. We stood and watched the dust settle. "Okay," he said. "Refuge." We moved fast. We kept low. We breathed through our sleeves. The refuge door was supposed to be 2 drifts over and 1 down. We marked our path with chalk. Our arrows stayed a minute and then were smeared. Black smears where our arrows had been, like a hand dragged behind us. I stopped and wiped my glove on the wall and left a new smear. "Stop doing that," he said. His voice shook. "Just go." We reached the refuge. The door was there. The light over it was dead. The handle was cold and gritty. I pulled. It stuck. I pulled harder. It gave an inch and then stopped, like something pressed from the other side. The air around my face cooled in a way that made my teeth ache. My headlamp showed the condensation off the door. It gathered and slid. For a second, a face rose out of it, only because it caught the beam in the shape of cheeks and a nose and a blank mouth. Then it fell back to nothing. I heard my brother say, "No, no, no," under his breath. "Help me," I said. We both yanked. The door came open enough for an arm. The air that came out had no smell at all. It felt thin. It wasn't right. It was dead air. The canary didn't move. It stayed silent. My monitor gave a long, low chirp and then just a little click. The numbers were empty bars. We can't sit in there," he said. He was right. If the scrubbers were dead, we would just wait and pass out. We closed the door. It stuck again when it got close, like a magnet at the last bit, and then clicked shut. "Back to the lines," I said. We purge the drift. We get the fan back. We get air moving. We made our way to the junction where the air line came through with the rusty valve. The little portable fan sat on a pallet. It had a cord that ran off to the right to a panel. The panel's light was off. I opened the valve and it screamed and then steadied. Cold, clean air shot out in a hard stream. It blew the dust off the ribs and made the wet shine. The sour smell slid away like oil. I told him to hold the line and sweep the drift. I went to the panel. I banged the side. I checked the plug with my glove. The plug was seated. I flipped the breaker. It sparked once, and the fan coughed. It spun slow. It caught and then stopped, and then caught again. It sounded like it had grit in its throat. "Come on," I said. I put my forehead to the metal and felt the vibration. It went steady for a few breaths. The draft moved my sleeves. The tapping sound stopped. I let my head drop. I just breathed. The harsh sour had thinned to something I could ignore. "See?" he said. He grinned. It looked wrong in the lamplight, but it was still a grin. "We're good. We sweep and go back. We can still haul." "Shut up about hauling," I said. "We go." He held the purge line and swept the blast of air down the drift. The fog in the beam tore away. The roped timbers looked like wet bones. The fan groaned back to life. We both stood and listened to it. It was like a heartbeat that wasn't ours. Then it stopped again. Just cut. The silence slammed back. The purge line spat and then went dead. The pressure fell. The drift went dull. The sour smell rolled back in, heavy, like a wet blanket over my head. My lamp dimmed with it. His lamp twitched. The tapping started again. It came from both sides now, from behind the ribs, as if someone inside the wall knocked on the bolts. "Don't breathe deep," I said. My voice came out small. We turned, and there it was. I wouldn't call it a thing. It was a patch of air that held together wrong. It was a cloud that didn't move like a cloud. It held a shape like a person holds a doorway and refuses to step aside. It stood in my lamp beam and took on edges. It had a face for a second. It had eyes where the light hit. It wasn't a person. It wasn't anything. It was gas. It was a wet cold in a shape that came forward. It slid over my wrist before I moved. It felt like dry ice, but dry ice doesn't feel like it's moving against your skin on purpose. It burned cold and then it numbed. My glove stuck to my wrist, and when I pulled it back, the skin under it felt raw and slick. I swore. I shook my arm. My brother swore too. He swung the purge line at it out of habit like you swing a hose at a stray dog. Nothing came out. The valve coughed one last puff and then just sighed. "Run," I said. "To where?" he said. He looked young then. He looked like when we were kids, and we'd run in the barn and he fell and split his lip. His eyes were wide and wet. "Crosscut," I said. "Dead end has a bin. We can force air and light. We can blow it." "Yeah," I said. "We blow it." We moved with our bodies low. The drafts along the floor were cold enough to make my knees ache. My chalk marks from before were smeared entirely now. There were just streaks and drips like someone had wiped their hands over every place I wrote. The canary cage swung against my belt and tapped my leg. It felt like a clock. The metal tapping went along with it, like it mocked the cage. Tap. 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 The crosscut was there. It was short and ended at a face the crew had left raw when they shut the level. There was an air tap on the right. We could see the valve. We could see the little bracket where a flare stick sat in a clip. Someone had left two there. We each grabbed one. My hands shook. He held his in his teeth while he cracked the valve a hair. The hiss came and then steadied. There was pressure. Good. The little fan was dead, but the line had juice. "On three," I said. "We purge first. Then light. Then push it back and we go." He nodded. He looked at me like we had when we took turns jumping from the gravel pile into the creek. That fast little nod. No words. He cracked the valve more. The air blew cold and hard. It pushed our sleeves. It pushed at the fog in the beam and made it tear. The specter came into the cut with us. It thickened. It wasn't a man. It pretended at a face because the beam made edges. It held a shape that made my brain put a face on it. It came fast for something that wasn't solid. It spilled into the cut and up the wall and over the ceiling. The sour smell came with it, stronger than it had been, the kind that makes your stomach go loose. My lamp dimmed to a ring. His lamp flickered like a bird's wing. "Now," I said. "Now." He opened the valve wide. The blast was a roar in that narrow space. The air slammed into the specter. It shredded. It bled away to the sides, and in the same breath thickened again where the pressure fell. I kept my feet planted. I struck the flare on my thigh. It spit and sputtered. It caught. It was a small, hot orange. It hissed. I held it out, and the heat made my knuckles sting through the glove. "Don't drop it," he said. His voice was high. I torched it toward the cloud. The flame bent in the blast. The heat took a thin layer of it and made it glow dull for a blink like oil film. There was no boom. It wasn't that kind of gas. It was worse. It pulled the heat off the flame like it ate it. The ball of gas shaped like a head rolled toward my chest. The cold hit me where my heart is, and I felt it right inside. I shoved the flare into it. The flare screamed like metal cooling. It didn't go out. It fought and threw sparks. The sparks stuck to my sleeve and went dark. He took the second flare and cracked it. He pushed it into the blast and over my shoulder. We yelled without words. We stood and held the air in flame like we were holding off a dog with two brooms. The draft forced the thing back inch by inch. It thinned. It sagged. It licked up the walls and then slipped back down greasy. The face in my beam fell apart. It tried to pull back into the drift behind us, but the blast pinned it. It was like a sheet in a wind. It had corners. It wanted to hug. I felt that cold on my chest and arm the whole time we did it. It burned as it went. It didn't freeze. It burned cold, like teeth are cold. I kept the flare up until my hand shook. The hiss of the air and the hiss of the flame made an ugly harmony that drilled into my skull. His monitor chirped on a rhythm that didn't match mine. Mine stayed dumb. The canary cage tapped my leg. Tap, tap, tap. When it thinned enough that the sour lifted, I said, "Go." My mouth felt dry with metal. I grabbed his sleeve. We backed out of the cut with the flares held out in the air hissing. We didn't turn. We didn't drop our eyes to our boots. We looked at the space in front of us, and the way the light showed nothing there for a second. We ran. We ran past the refuge and the smeared walls and the door that stuck at the last inch. We ran over the slab that had dropped. It had spared a skinny crawl on the left. I had not seen it before. Maybe it wasn't there before. I don't know. We shoved through it on our sides. The flares went out on the wet rock and made smoke that tasted like pennies. He cursed and kicked and got stuck and kicked again. I grabbed his belt and pulled. We wormed through. The door to the sealed section sat ahead, wide open now like it had been that afternoon. No wedge, no marks, no sound. The fan down the line coughed once and caught. The hum came back weak and then strong. The draft ran like a river around our legs. The sour smell fell to nothing. My headlamp brightened. His steadied. The metal tapping stopped so hard it left a ringing in my ears. The canary took one little breath that I felt more than heard and then made a ragged chirp. We did not stop. We did not look back into the drift. We moved past the dead tools and the prints that were now just swirls in the wet dust. We banged the gate with our hips and shoulders. The night outside the portal was cold but different. It was clean cold. It had pine and oil and dirt I knew. I stood with my hands on my knees and I spit black spit onto the gravel until my throat stopped trying to turn itself inside out. He laughed once. It broke and turned to something else. I put my hand on his shoulder and felt him shaking. He didn't look at me. He looked back at the dark hole and then looked away fast. We didn't talk much after. We cleaned up in the shed. We washed our hands until the skin went raw. The sour smell stayed. It would leave and then snap back like we had just turned a corner into it. My wrist where the cold touched had a patch like a burn. It was pale and numb in the middle and tender on the edge. He had a spot on his cheek that matched. We kept it to ourselves. Who would believe it? We told the foreman the fan had tripped and we got it back and the breaker needed a new fuse. He nodded. He didn't care. He didn't ask why we were there. He just wanted the lights on. We went home before the sun. I sat in my kitchen and watched the window turn gray. My boots sat by the door. I didn't take them off. My hands lay flat on the table. They looked like someone else's hands, shiny, with black ground into the nail beds. The stink of sour gas rose and fell like it was caught in the lines of my palms. It clung no matter what soap I used. My brother called me from his truck outside and said, "You hear that?" "Hear what?" He was quiet. "Nothing. Never mind." I hung up. The house was still. The fridge clicked. The furnace ticked. The canary cage sat on the counter where I had set it like an idiot. The bird had fluffed up and looked like a yellow leaf. It watched nothing. I made coffee. The kettle screamed and shook. It calmed and steamed. I poured. My hands shook. The steam wrote shapes in the window, and then it didn't. I sat, and I sipped, and I tried to breathe slow. I put the monitor on the table out of habit. I wanted to see a steady bar. I wanted to hear its normal song. I wanted to know the numbers meant anything. It sat there dull. It had taken a beating. It had grit in the speaker. It was just a little box. I stared at it like it would tell me what the hell was. I stared until my eyes watered. It gave one chirp. Just one. Right in the quiet kitchen. A clean little note. The kind it had given inside when the canary went still. Not the right pattern. One. Then nothing. I held my breath and listened. The sour smell came off my hands strong and then blinked away so hard I thought I had imagined it. I rubbed my wrists until they burned and I couldn't smell anything but my own skin. I lived. We both did. That's the truth. We walked out. We went back to work. We kept our heads down. But now when the fan hiccuped on a shift, my mouth went dry. When a draft hit my ankles, my knees felt weak. When my lamp dimmed, I held my breath. When the kitchen was quiet, I heard that single chirp again. And sometimes, when I made coffee in the morning before the sun, I saw my breath and it held the shape of a face in the beam from the window, and then it slid down and was only air, and the faint sour never left my hands. What, Nye? I hope you liked this one, and if you did, prove it. Hit that like button, subscribe, and make sure you come back for more. It takes a second, and it really keeps this channel breathing. There's another story waiting. You should probably watch it before the lights flicker again. See you in the next one.